About a year ago, a few weeks after my 2-year-long relationship ended, I found myself in a state of complete disarray. I was attending college and spending the summer in a small town, living with my parents. During this time, a friend offered to help me create my very first online dating profile, as he believed it could be a solution for moving on. Although his intentions were good, the experience proved to be quite perplexing. I must admit, some of the men who contacted me were quite attractive, and my friend had done a decent job with the profile. However, being unfamiliar with the workings of the website, I clumsily began texting a few individuals I had met. This is where I encountered Robert, a man who appeared strikingly handsome from the neck down, standing at an impressive 6'3" and participating in bodybuilding competitions. Unfortunately, his facial features resembled that of an axe murderer, with crooked teeth, thin metallic framed glasses, and a haircut that seemed outdated. Nevertheless, I tried to give Robert the benefit of the doubt, as he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. On the first night of texting, we engaged in conversations about our lives until the early hours of the morning. While there were a few things he mentioned that I usually considered turnoffs when looking for a date, they weren't exactly red flags. One of these factors was his lack of a promising career, working as a high school track assistant coach, which left me uncertain about his financial stability. Another aspect that concerned me was our differing preferences in bed. As a complete bottom, it was important to me that my potential partner was a complete top. Unfortunately, Robert confessed that he was a versatile top, meaning he predominantly preferred that role but occasionally switched. Deep down, I knew we would never be compatible, and I'll admit that my judgment may have been a bit superficial. I shared my reservations with Robert, explaining that I had just gone through a recent breakup and didn't feel ready to meet someone for a dinner date, where I would likely end up crying throughout the entire meal. He understood and agreed to postpone our date. Strangely enough, 3 hours later, he asked me out again, which struck me as odd. This made me uneasy, and I decided to stop communicating with him. However, Robert began calling me multiple times a day, and what made it even more bizarre was the fact that he would call at very specific times, 10:17 a.m. and 9:17 p.m. sometimes. He would even make 3 consecutive calls. Considering we had only exchanged texts for less than half a day, this behavior began to frighten me. As a joke, I mentioned the situation to a police officer friend, but his response was unexpectedly serious. He advised me to delete my dating profile, which hadn't crossed my mind until then, and urged me to be cautious. In front of my friend, I deleted my profile, but within 30 seconds, I received a text in all capital letters, asking why I had deleted it. It startled me, and I suspected that Robert had been monitoring my activities on the website. This added to my growing unease. The morning calls became a cause for serious concern, and even after about a week and roughly 40 missed calls, it seemed he still hadn't gotten the message. I desperately wished that he would finally stop, but unfortunately, that hope was short-lived. One morning, my mom handed me a large manila envelope she had retrieved from the day's mail. It had a handwritten address, scribbled as if by a child. Assuming it was artwork from one of the students I babysat, I excitedly opened it. To my horror, the envelope contained a 2-page typed letter, a complete chat log of our online conversation, a transcript of our text messages, and an enlarged 8x5 by 11 copy of my profile photo from the website. It's important to note that I had no clue how he obtained my address. Moreover, I couldn't fathom how he had managed to create a text log without manually copying our entire conversation. It was all very peculiar. Overwhelmed with emotion, I burst into tears upon seeing the 20 pages of horrifying content that spilled out of the envelope. To this day, I haven't mustered the courage to read the typed message. All I know is that it ended with a disturbingly large smiley face. Witnessing my distress, my mom inquired about the cause, and I revealed that I was being stalked. When she asked who was behind it, I disclosed Robert's full name. What happened next completely shattered me. My mom began crying too and confessed that Rob had emailed her, pretending to be interested in donating to charity. As the conversation progressed, he began asking about her children, causing her to abruptly end the email exchange. Both of us were now in tears. I immediately called the local police department to report the stalking, informing them that the man had somehow obtained my address and was contacting my family members. An officer was dispatched to our house, and after thoroughly examining our documents, he informed us that although Robert's actions were unsettling, he hadn't made any direct threats of violence, leaving the police with limited options. After spending some time with us and discussing potential scenarios, the officer walked to his patrol car to leave. That's when we noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street. It was Robert. Strangely, despite the emotional turmoil I had endured that day, I didn't feel particularly frightened in that moment. Unaware of who Robert was, the police officer proceeded to his car. But when Robert saw me standing there with the cop, he likely grew nervous and quickly drove away. From that moment on, I never heard from him again. To provide further context, I should mention that I am a female, and at the time of this incident, I was just 16 years old, naive, and lacking the experience to handle such a situation. This event occurred around 2003, when I started chatting with a guy on a forum due to his username, which referenced an Incubus lyric I liked. We continued our conversations on MSN Messenger for quite some time, during which I lied about my age, claiming to be 18 while he claimed to be in his 20s. A few months later, we decided to meet, as he lived just 2 hours away from me. Looking back, it was an incredibly foolish decision to share my address with him. Our first date was extremely awkward, involving bowling and soft drinks. I sensed his interest, but communication without the comfort of computers seemed to be a challenge for him. Despite the awkwardness, I agreed to a second date, thinking that the social atmosphere of a school-hosted Battle of the Bands event would improve our interaction. He picked me up from home and surprised me with lavish gifts: a pricey Incubus t-shirt, a birthstone ring, handmade origami hearts, all stored in a wooden box, along with flowers. It felt excessive for a second date, especially after our initial encounter had been so uncomfortable. During the concert, he struck up conversations with some of my friends. While I went to watch a band I was interested in, I later discovered that he had vanished. I searched for him and asked around, only to find out that he had given my friend a ride home without informing me, with no intention of returning for me. I had to arrange a ride with my neighbors. Naturally, I was upset and decided to end the relationship. I broke up with him over the phone, but he continued to send me emails for the next few days. He expressed uncertainty about his actions, claiming he had made a terrible mistake. At first, he sent letters, but then he started sending gifts, flowers, CDs of himself singing, locks of hair, and even condoms he had ejaculated into. I should have confided in my parents at this point, but fear of getting in trouble for lying about my age and meeting someone from the internet held me back. I mostly ignored these disturbing items, occasionally asking him to stop. However, my 17-year-old sister discovered his presence when he added her on MSN Messenger, proclaiming his love for me. To my shock and devastation, she encouraged his advances, inviting him to come over to work things out. I confided in her, explaining everything that had transpired, and she immediately panicked. We locked ourselves in the house, turned off the lights, and called our parents. My father returned home and stepped outside just as the guy arrived. Without hesitation, he turned around and left. We had no contact with him for about a week. Then, one day, while my sister was using the internet, she exclaimed, "Oh shit, you need to see this." On the screen, we saw his username, and my sister had unknowingly downloaded a file from him. It turned out to be a video of him carving my name into his chest. At the end of the video, he looked directly into the camera and said, "This is my final goodbye." After that, I never heard from him again. I was so disturbed by the experience that I even checked local newspapers for any reports of suicides, as I was genuinely terrified. Years later, I stumbled upon him on Facebook and curiously browsed through his pictures. In one of them, I could still see my name scarred into his chest, serving as a chilling reminder of that horrifying period in my life. In the past, I engaged in a lot of online dating due to the difficulty of meeting new people in the city where I reside. People tend to keep to themselves, making it challenging to make connections. I had a particular preference on OkCupid, leaning towards a certain type of guy. Tall, handsome, well-dressed, driven, intellectual, with a touch of hipster and geekiness. I had high standards, so I invested considerable time screening potential dates through extensive messaging and chats before meeting them in person. Growing up mostly on the internet, I believed I had developed a good sense of identifying creeps and weirdos. I referred to it as my fifth funny inner feeling. That's when I came across George, who seemed to embody everything I was looking for. With a stylish pompadour, a hint of stubble like Ryan Gosling, and an eloquent profile, he intrigued me. Our messages delved into deep topics such as philosophy, literature, and fantastic music. I was quickly infatuated with him. We started texting, and our conversations continued to be filled with rich vocabulary and unique subjects. One night, fueled by a few too many whiskey sours, I impulsively texted George at 1 a.m., suggesting we meet up for pizza. Spontaneity often leads to exciting adventures, or so I thought. I walked into the pizza place and spotted George, sitting amidst empty tables, waiting for me. He was even more stunning than his photographs, and my heart skipped a beat. Our conversation flowed effortlessly for hours. We had excellent chemistry, and I felt completely at ease with him. Around 5 a.m., he proposed taking me to his house to watch a movie he had made. Although not alarmed, I firmly expressed that I was not the type of woman to engage in physical intimacy on the first date. George respected my boundaries and held my hand, assuring me that he understood. Excitedly, we practically skipped to his home, engrossed in animated conversation. I became even more impressed when we reached his abode, a basement in a massive old mansion shared with 5 professional female artists. Every corner exuded good taste, filled with captivating artwork and intriguing artifacts. Both of us comfortably settled on his bed, enjoying each other's company. He queued up a student film he had created years ago, a mesmerizing blend of colors and lines synchronized with Brian Eno's music. Truth be told, we paid little attention to it. George stared at me, his gaze filled with desire, and leaned in for our first kiss. However, he abruptly pulled away, his demeanor changing. His once mellow and happy attitude turned intense, but not in a sexy way. His eyes hardened, his features sharpened, and his grip on me tightened. Trying to diffuse the tension, I nervously giggled, saying, "I'm James Bond, you know." My alarm bells started ringing and confusion enveloped me. What was happening? "I'm sorry, I've never seen any of the movies," I quickly added, hoping to regain control of the situation. His narrowed eyes fixed on me, and he responded with an unnerving statement. "Don't get too close. Don't get close at all." We had been having such a great time, and this sudden shift in his personality perplexed me. Attempting to steer us back to a more comfortable atmosphere, I suggested we continue watching the movie. I inched slightly away from him and leaned back, pretending to be nonchalant, my gaze fixed on the TV screen. In reality, I was on high alert, every nerve in my body ready for flight. Though physically capable of defending myself, I wanted to tactfully extricate myself from the situation before it escalated. Backing off didn't feel like the right move. George seemed to sense my withdrawal, and suddenly, he pounced on top of me, attempting to force himself upon me. "George," I protested, pushing him away. "I told you I'm not going to engage in physical intimacy on the first date." My heart raced, and I didn't want to resort to violence, fearing the situation could worsen. I forcefully resisted his advances, shoving him away. His demeanor shifted once again, his anger subsiding. "Look, I'm sorry. I can't. I'm broken. My ex-girlfriend really hurt me. I can't love," he pleaded, trying to reach out to me once more. Though a flicker of compassion ignited within me, recognizing a broken man before me, I knew it was just a manipulative ploy. I buttoned up my jacket, donned my hat, and firmly stated, "I need to go home." His expression changed again, his jaw clenched, and a hint of hatred flashed across his face. Reluctantly, he agreed to walk me out, but his anger was palpable. "No, that's okay," I protested as he insisted on accompanying me. Nevertheless, I meekly nodded, and we made our way to the basement door. I fumbled with the lock, anxious to escape. Finally, I stepped out into the chilly early morning sunlight, my breath forming small clouds. George followed me, appearing dejected, like a kicked puppy, at the gate. I paused to bid him farewell, my mind filled with confusion and regret. He stared at me, the man I had initially met that night, gentle and handsome, now aloof. Then, in a sudden outburst, he grabbed both of my arms tightly and attempted to kiss me again. I turned my face away, and his lips collided with my cheek. His grip on my arm was so tight that I had bruises the next day. "George, you're hurting me," I exclaimed, desperately trying to free myself. Eventually, he released me, silently watching as I walked away until I disappeared around the corner. Since that incident, I haven't heard from him. However, I have encountered him at bars, seemingly normal and approachable, always laughing. In today's modern world, it has become incredibly convenient to connect with others. All you need to do is grab your phone, install an app, and voila! You can instantly explore a pool of potential partners within your proximity, all from the comfort of your bed. However, my perspective on online dating underwent a drastic change about a year ago. At the time, I was 21 and growing weary of the monotonous routine. While casually browsing a popular dating app, I stumbled upon someone who caught my attention. He was tall, blonde, with captivating blue eyes and a charming smile. We swiftly matched and agreed to meet for dinner and some quality time at his place. I am aware of the risks associated with visiting a stranger's home on a first date, but I was hoping for a remarkable connection, if you catch my drift. I hurriedly prepared myself, taking a shower, donning a matching set of undergarments, slipping into a loose-fitting t-shirt and shorts, and adding a dash of my favorite perfume. Soon enough, I was on my way. Upon arriving at his 3-story townhome, I couldn't help but notice that his dwelling reflected his profession. Naturally, I assumed he was the person he claimed to be. I approached the front door and gently knocked. Within a mere 15 seconds, the door swung open, revealing the most stunning man my eyes had ever beheld. An instant connection sparked between us. We proceeded to date for approximately 4 weeks, until one fateful day when he turned to me and uttered, "Can I share something with you?" Naturally, my response was an eager, "Of course, babe," as I longed to hear what he had to say. With a straight face and a piercing gaze, he confessed, "When I came across your profile on that app, I initially had intentions of causing you harm. However, I changed my mind." An icy chill surged down my spine as the gravity of his words sank in. Paralyzed by fear, I remained speechless and immobile, incapable of any response. Drawing closer, he continued, "Babe." It was at that moment I snapped back to reality. I seized my purse, sprinted out of his house, promptly blocked and deleted his contact information, and truthfully wiped the entire app from my phone. So, to the attractive gentleman from the dating app, let us never cross paths again.